Hello everyone, welcome to our Group F's video presentation. We have 4 teammates, each covering one question. Today we'll dig into Norway's landscape to unpack key cross-border business questions. My name is Jingyi Pan. I'll start with the impact of globalization on Norway's political economy and legal challenges for Australian businesses. So, the political system is rooted in democracy and collectivism. It lays down basic governance rules and works closely with two key systems, which are the source-driven mixed economy and the code-based civil law system. Globalization is the throat, making all these three sections influence each other. As for the Norway's political system, in this graph, we can see that it sits in the democracy and strong collectivism. Journal of International Business Studies research confirms its multi-party system and high welfare stem from collectivist values. Globalization has shifted its policies to more international cooperation. Norway works with alliances to protect interests. This is very different from Australia's democracy and weak collectivism, which will directly affecting the legal system, and we'll talk about it later. Next, we'll talk about the Norway's economic systems. This pie chart shows a mixed economy. The Norwegian government uses a sovereign fund to manage resource, income, and drive green development. Maintaining private sector efficiency, its human capital investment, and favorable foreign investment policies have further supported the global success of its resource industries. As these policies attract international talent and tech, and help the country tap into cross-border trade networks seamlessly. So, if you are an Australian man who wants to start a business in Norway, legal system differences are critical. Norway follows civil law, so it rules in detailed codes, and its judges apply strictly with no extra interpretation. But Australia uses common law, which judges rely on the past cases. A Journal of World Business Study notes different contracts says that Norwegian contracts are simpler, relying on the standard code terms. Australian contracts must list all scenarios. This gap is a major contract risk. However, Norway's laws always enterprise the environment and works rights. 4OR journal analysis found that its resource industry environment standards and wages of workers are far exceed global averages. So these differences created three key challenges. Firstly, contract risks. American Economic Review research says that civil law implied terms include local customs. Using Australian common law logic, it means that missing key details, making disputes harder to resolve. To deal with this, I think we should avoid home country contracts. We should work with local lawyers who is familiar with both legal system. And secondly, higher compliance costs. Norway's strict rules raise foreign businesses' initial investments by over 13%, which is a very huge extra expense. So that means we should always plan extra costs early and set money aside. Finally, IP adaptation. Accounting and finance research points out that civil law focuses on formal IP checks. Infringement rules differ, so Australian businesses must adapt IP strategies, otherwise they may lose rights. So, in conclusion, globalization has linked Norway's democratic, collectivist politics, resource-driven mixed economy, and code-based civil laws, which is vastly different from Australia's. We covered key challenges and strategies for entering Norway. But beyond this, the most important thing is, in deep globalization, Cross-border success isn't just citing the opportunities, it's respecting and adapting to each country's unique context. So we should bridge differences with understanding and flexibility. It is not just to avoid risk. It is more about build sustainable, mutually beneficial partnerships. Thank you.
Building on question 1, which analyzed Norway's overall attractiveness as a host country, this section addressed question 2, focus on economic and human development in Norway. The aim is not only to describe Norway's performance, but to evaluate which dimensions of development provide a more appropriate space for Australia firms considering long-term investment decisions. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperating and Development, economic development reflecting living standard rather than economic growth alone. In this analysis, economic development is measured using gross national income per capita adjusted by PPP. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development explained that this measure adjusts income for difference in the cost of living across countries, allowing for meaningful international comparison of economic development levels. Based on data from the World Bank and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Norway records a very high level of GNI per capita in PPP terms, placing it firmly among high-income economies. This reflects strong labor productivity and an advanced economic structure. However, the high income level, Norway's small population limited its domestic market size, which constrains opportunities for market-seeking foreign investment. In contrast to economic development, human development focuses on people's capability rather than income alone. According to the United Nations Development Program, human development is measured using the HDI, which combines indicators of health, education, and living standards. This makes the HDI a broader and more comprehensive measure of development quality. Based on HDI data pushed by the United Nations Development Program, Norway ranks among the highest performing countries globally in terms of human development. Its very high HDI reflects strong outcome in education and health, as well as a higher overall quality of life. Those outcomes indicate the presence of highly skilled and reliable workforce, which is particularly important for firms engaged in long-term and productivity-focused operations. When comparing the two dimensions, economic development highlights Norway's strong income performance and productivity, but remains constrained by its limited domestic market size. In contrast, human development compacts education levels, health outcome, and workforce quality, which directly support operations stability and long-term productivity. This comparison suggests that human development provides greater economic power when evaluating Norway's long-term investment environment. To answer question 2, although Norway performs strongly in both economic and human development provides a more appropriate basis for judgment. Before domestic that in high-income economic with limited market size, human capital become more important than market size for efficiency seeking and long-term foreign direct investment. Given Norway's small domestic market but very high level of education and health, this finding is directly applicable to Australian firms considering long-term investment in Norway. So in conclusion, this analysis complements question 1 by evaluating Norway's development condition in greater depth, the finding of question 2, also providing a foundation for question 3, where cultural and institution factor will further shape the stability of Norway and investment decision. So let's move on question 3.
My name is Aria. Today I'm going to talk about the cultural distance between Norway and Australia and whether the cultures of these two countries are becoming more similar or more different. To do this, I will use two main cultural frameworks that we learned in this unit, especially Hofstad's cultural dimensions and ideas about globalization and institutions from international business theory. First of all, the overall cultural distance between Norway and Australia is relatively low. According to Hofstad's cultural dimensions, both countries have low power distance. This means people generally believe in equality, flat organizational structures, and informal communication. Managers are seen more as team members than as authority figures. Both countries are also highly individualistic, so people value personal responsibility and independence. Because of these similarities, business interactions between Norway and Australia are usually quite smooth. However, there is still an important difference. Norway is considered a very feminine culture, which focuses on equality, cooperation, and work life balance. Australia, on the other hand, is more masculine, meaning it places more emphasis on competition, performance, and achievement. This difference can affect how employees are motivated and how success is defined in the workplace. The second point is about globalization. As we learned in Lecture 1 and Lecture 3, globalizations has made countries more connected through trade, technology, and communication. Because of this, Norway and Australia have become more similar in business practices. Both countries have open market economies, strong legal systems, and high level of economic development. Companies in both countries often use similar management practices, accounting standards, and communication technologies. Research in international business, including studies published in the Journal of International Business Studies, shows that globalization encourages cultural convergence, especially at the surface level, such as workplace behavior and business processes. So, in this sense, the cultures of Norway and Australia are becoming more similar over time. However, my third point is that culture still matters even when countries look similar on the surface. Based on political economic theory from Lecture 2 and institutional theory, both Norway and Australia have stable governments, strong legal protection, and support free trade under the WTO. These institutional similarities reduce business risk and make international operations easier. But scholars such as Shanker argue that cultural distance does not disappear just because institutions are similar. Deep cultural values change very slowly. For example, Norway's strong focus on social equality and consensus-based decision, making it still different from Australia's more competitive and performance-driven approach. So while institutions make business safer, cultural differences still influence communication, leadership, and decision making. To conclude, the cultural distance between Norway and Australia is relatively low, especially compared to many other countries. Globalization has made the two cultures more similar in business practices. However, core cultural values remain different, particularly in attitudes toward competition, equality, and work life balance. Understanding these similarities and differences is important for international business success. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Qiu Qidan, and I will speak on question 4 about our country profile on Norway. To begin with, I will start with the theory of absolute advantage of Adam Smith. According to a theory of Smith in his 1776 work, The Wealth of Nations, the country should specialize in producing goods. In other words, produce more with the same resources as any other country. This competence is based on such factors as natural endowments or the expertise of a country. In the case of Norway, this absolute advantage can be best seen in its oil and gas production industry. as it boasts of abundant oil and gas resources in the North Sea. It's technologically advanced and also in its maritime shipping and shipbuilding industries, which were developed through centuries of experience and innovation. Using the framework of Smith, the trade policy of Norway should be aimed at exporting such goods for which it has a decided global efficiency advantage. Second, as per the theory of comparative advantage of David Ricardo, the important revelation by Ricardo, as evidenced in 1817, is that trade is useful when a given country happens to be less efficient in all goods. The main idea here is opportunity cost, the cost of giving up the next best alternative. A country ought to specialize in the production of goods whose opportunity cost is the lowest. That is, it is comparatively more efficient, and to import goods whose opportunity cost is higher. Using the model offered by Ricardo in relation to Norway helps to shift the relativity of efficiency to its absolute version. Norway has an absolute advantage in oil, but it might be a huge opportunity cost of putting all its resources in oil to lose development opportunities in other sectors. Hence, the comparative advantage of Norway probably rests in areas related to renewable energy technology, such as hydropower, wind, and green hydrogen, where its engineering experience and clean energy infrastructure have given it a significant relative advantage, and in high-value agriculture, where its clean fields and developed biotech have given it an unparalleled relative advantage. What is left, according to Ricardo, is that Norway must specialize and export such goods to maximize the total welfare by engaging in trade, although it may not be the cheapest producer in the world. Last but not least, which theory ought the Norwegian government to adhere to? First recommendation is based on the political economy. Economic resilience. The danger with the model proposed by Smith is that it may over-specialize in volatile commodities, whereas the model by Ricardo promotes diversification to sophisticated, knowledge-based industries, which is essential to a small, open economy. Second, dynamic competitiveness. Ricardo's theory is in line with the development of advanced endowments of factors of production, such as skilled labor and innovation, as a real source of sustained advantage. As suggested by Porter in his Diamond, this is the case in Norway in its investments in green technology. Third, alignment of strategic policies. The adherence to comparative advantage contributes to the transformation of Norway to a green growth model. This is also not merely an environmental decision, but a cost reduction plan to build export strengths in high-value sectors in the future so as to have long-term prosperity. To sum it up, although the absolute advantage developed by Adam Smith may be used to explain the historical success of Norway, the comparative advantage introduced by David Ricardo offers the complex, long-range reasoning that should help a high-income and high-technology economy succeed in the sophisticated global market exchange system. This distinction is particularly important in a global context shaped by decarbonization, technological change, and increasing competition among advanced economies. That concludes our group's analysis of Norway's trade specialization. Thank you.